Thanks, Ntola, for having me on a panel today. My name is Zarina Kanji. I'm the MD for Europe and the UK at WPIC, which is a marketing and e-commerce digital agency helping brands to activate in Asia.
I'm Sara Russell. I'm the marketing director for e-commerce agency 5874 Commerce, and I'm also the co-founder for the Women's Domain, which is an initiative that we launched almost 3 years ago now.
My name is Carlotta Zorzi Chapman. I am a partnership professional working for Shopify, and outside of that I do a bunch of other different things. I'm a mentor for many different women networks and underrepresented groups to try and get more people onto technology. I'm also a TEDx speaker, and recently I have launched an initiative that is called Too Ambitious. You can find it at 2-ambitious.com, and it's essentially an initiative aimed at celebrating ambitioning women as a positive force for good and positive impact in the world.
Excellent.
Exciting. Do you want to talk about what you've just launched as well?
Yes, we're launching the Women's Domain Accelerator Program starting in January 2025, where we are bringing on board up to 10 female-driven brands, and we're going to help them grow in whatever way they see fit by utilizing the network and contacts that we have in the industry. And it's a 12-month program, so it's not a one-size-fits-all, it's not too intensive, but it's very bespoke. So depending on the wants and needs of the brand, the cohort, we have the network in place that can help you with marketplaces, with distribution, with B2B, etc. So we're really excited about it, and we've actually announced 2 brands already, The Seat Company and Bearkind, and there'll be another announcement later on this week, as well as some excellent mentors as well, including the lovely Ntola, who is going to help mentor our brands too.
Right, we're going to talk about leveraging AI for enhanced customer experience long term. With AI at the forefront of every tech development and senior leadership discussions, how can we actually leverage AI to balance tech? And I think what's important is bring that human element to the forefront. Zarina, do you want to talk about what's happening in your world? Because we know that China is always 10 years or 10x ahead of everyone else. And in your new role as MD for WPIC, surely that's at the forefront.
Yes, absolutely. So I think most people are aware that China and Asia are really pioneering innovation in tech entirely, and particularly in the spaces of CX and AI. But vitally though, all of those elements, they're only as good as what goes in, garbage in, garbage out. So it is the human element that is creating all of this, that is inventing all of this. What's really interesting about Asia and about China specifically is that all of the e-commerce platforms, they were developed independent of what was going on in the West. So they're all very integrated. So they offer this seamless experience to the customer, but also to the brands and the service providers who are working within them. So it's quite a different process to what we have in the West, and it really gives you a completely different perspective on the consumer, on how things work. And I think the other thing is that you can, as a brand, you can confidently hand over to a partner and know that they are fully integrated within the integrated system, and they can really support with all elements of e-commerce, with marketing, with customer service, with logistics, and it all kind of flows through. I think one example of that would be the way that the key opinion leader model has evolved within Asia. So key opinion leaders are influencers, and basically at WPIC we have our own live stream studio, so we can use our bank of key opinion leaders. They understand how we work, they understand how the platforms work. They can come in, we can help a brand to understand who would be the best fit for them. They can then stream from one of our studios, and we stream about 200 hours a day, and then what we can do is bring in tools like AI to understand what the most common questions are from the customers, what problems the customers have most frequently, and then we can train these key opinion leaders to form AI key opinion leaders, and then we can have an artificial intelligent influencer broadcasting 24/7 about the brand, and we're doing that with, like, for example, a beauty brand from the US called IS Clinical at the moment. So we've trained the key opinion leader to become artificially intelligent, and so it mitigates risk for brands, and it means that the customer has a constant person to ask questions and to help them deliver. And for a brand, obviously, that is really great as well, because they get their message out there, there's no margin for human error.
So real-time trend analysis, but still having people at the core of it to tell the brand story.
Exactly.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bringing it across the pond in your world, Sarah, what are some of the things that are happening in your industry in this area?
Yeah, so I think, as an agency that works with merchants, B2B, B2C, our ethos as an agency anyway is people first. So whenever we're talking about AI and those tools that you can use, it's all about how you can sort of maximize that goal that you need, but without always putting people at the center of what you're trying to achieve. So, like 2 examples of what we've seen our clients use it for is, for instance, we have one client who's incorporated AI chatbot, which we've all used and had different levels of experience with it. But they've seen like a 50% sort of decrease in having to sort their support emails, which what that means is it opens up their time and capacity to help more complex issues with their customers and create that more thorough customer experience, which is what we're after. And also AI and PIM, we've used Akinio to, for instance, product translations and having to change it into different channels, so English to French to German, etc. And we've been able to utilize the AI tool with that, ultimately being, it's easier to edit something rather than start from scratch every time. But it's always about creating efficiencies in order to allow the people to have a better customer experience and be able to achieve stuff better. And I would also say, like, from a marketeer's point of view, I'm a content marketeer. I don't pretend to be a technical one, but my love is content marketing. And I use ChatGPT, mate. Now, not to create blogs, don't do that, because that's not going to end well. But it's using it to come up with ideas, to like, I want to talk about peak trading, I want to choose whatever it is, and utilizing it to help your week and to like schedules these ideas that you can then create your blogs for and your content for. I find it really useful, and it really helps.
What about you, Carlotta? How's AI transforming customer experiences in your world?
I think the impact that it's having is honestly like revolutionizing the way we do things, right? Especially like in the tech field, also beyond CX. It's just like the ability of AI to analyze large data sets and turn that into personalization, and that in turn becoming an opportunity to develop loyalty with customers is huge, right? Also thinking from a European perspective, we were like kind of thinking, okay, well, can we talk about it as a unique market? Not really, right? Like, there's so many different countries that require different personalizations. Within those countries, there's needs to personalize even further, right? So I think AI really allows for this change and this level of personalization, which increases loyalty. But one thing that I'm really curious, to be fair, to see on the AI space is the policy side of things, because we know that technology goes faster than policy and trust. And traditionally, Europe as a region, let's say, has always been very like trust and policy and privacy focused. So I'm really curious to see how that is going to evolve, let's say, because we're not there yet, I think.
Exciting. So we can't talk about customer experience without talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how I'm a strong advocate that it's really important for businesses and for brands, both in terms of people and profit. What are your experiences as leaders locally and globally? Maybe from your perspective, Zarina.
Yeah, I think in Asia, the voice of women is really important. At WPIC, we're 67% women, and a significant number of our senior leaders are women. So our CFO, our COO, our CTO, our VP of digital marketing, our head of finance, and then you've got me and my counterpart who runs our Australia and New Zealand office. We're all women. So our voices are really well heard within the organization. I think just anecdotally, things that I've picked up over the last decade that I've been working in Asia, For example, Women's Day is really important in Asia, much more so than it is in the West. In China, women are actually given half a day off work or a day off work. They're all gifted presents from their employers, from their husbands, from their sons, from their brothers. It's a really big day, and then of course that turns into a commercial day as well. But the voice of women is really, really significant in Asia, and that creates obviously a completely different dynamic. And I think that that's really impactful for both brands and customers, everyone in the system. So yeah, I feel like it's a positive experience.
And you've been a strong advocate for women with the Women's Domain and now with the Women's Accelerator Program. Do you want to talk about some of the insights that you've honed in from this initiative?
Oh, where do I start? So I think when we launched the Women's Domain, it came because we all sat around and it was International Women's Day coming up. And in marketing, obviously, you've got to post on social media, hey, happy International Women's Day, women are great. And I've done it. I've been in marketing a long time now, and I've done that, and then you forget about it, and the next day you're talking about something else. I didn't want to do that this time. I wanted to do something that we could really dive into what these issues were. And I'm relatively new to e-commerce. I've been in fintech before and in other aspects of the industry too, but I was first of all struck with how awesome this industry is, how wonderful the people are in it, but how there was a real lack of women in leadership. There was a real lack of women in development roles or tech roles specifically. And I wanted to understand why, because this is a very forward-thinking, newish industry. Like what hasn't changed? And so we essentially launched a 12-month campaign, the Women's Domain, where we would go around and we researched and interviewed and hosted events to actually dive into what these issues were. Things like women's health, imposter syndrome, all those things that aren't necessarily only connected to the e-commerce industry, but severely impact women in the workplace. And we created the white paper at the end of that. But, ultimately what we found is that everyone kind of wants to talk about it. I was relatively new to the industry, but suddenly my inbox was full of people going, oh, I like this, and have you heard about Women in E-commerce UK? Brilliant, another Women in E-commerce group as well. There's lots out there, and we're all talking about the same thing. But what's the point? We need some practical solutions, and we need to move forward and have some difficult conversations. And things like industry events and how they're not always as easy for women to attend or get out of it what men can possibly do too. And there's some real issues that we talk about with that. But yeah, people are wanting some kind of solution here, and I think that's why with the accelerator, I love driving awareness and I like being patted on the head saying well done, good job, but I like making money, and women like making money too and are really good at it. And there's so many brands out there that if they're able to sort of grow and scale at the same rate as their male counterparts, you're talking billions to the UK economy. So there is uncapped potential in this industry, and we all here have a responsibility to do something about it.
Well, especially if we want to tap into I think Gen Z and Gen Alpha is globally worth over $300 billion, and they care about what's happening in businesses and with brands and advocating for women as well. Do you want to talk about what's happening in your world? You've been doing a lot of things. Yeah. You did a TEDx in Italy and...
Oh my God, I love that.
I know.
I've been busy.
Yeah.
I would say like in my kind of advocacy work in this field, I've really noticed that diverse voices can really help impact, the internal culture within organizations, but that also reflects into how we communicate with our customers, right? And CX thrives on empathy. If we're able to really develop like these cultures that are able to communicate with a very diverse customer base, then we are one step closer to actually communicate with them in a more authentic way, right? That allows us to actually, convert them, but also like maintain them from a loyalty perspective. I actually found the research from PwC, it's a little bit like old, it's from 2019, and it said that 82% of consumers like to actually have human interaction when it comes to customer experience, right? So that's quite interesting because obviously AI is great from an efficiency, accuracy perspective, but then the importance of really maintaining and developing that relationship remains. And another study I found from Harvard's Business Review said that the number one leadership skill that actually helps thrive in customer experience is actually empathy. And companies that manage to, develop empathetic culture from within perform 20% better than companies that don't have that level of empathy. And again, it connects to how that is reflected with the relationship with the customers.
There's also, statistically, female-driven businesses are more profitable as well.
There's loads of data on that.
There's loads of data on that, loads of research on that. And I think as well, like with diversity, is that the people that buy your products, whether you're retail or textile or whatever, they don't all look and think like you, right? So if your workforce, your working environment needs to reflect the world we actually live in to truly be successful and profitable as well.
And another thing that I would add to this is we're only talking about like diversity like from a women perspective now. If we then go into the topic of like intersectionality and go deeper into, what is the spectrum of like diversity, then there's so much work that needs to be done, and so much work that, can really help us drive change like in society as well as like for the businesses we work for.
Yeah, and ultimately benefits the customer.
And I think, it's great that you're mentioning all the stats. The numbers are there, that it doesn't just help the business, but also the customer journey online, the accessibility, the messaging, everything that you're doing end to end is so important.
Yeah, how can you service something if you're not, if that is not represented from within, right?
Yeah. Women in leadership. So I was looking at the roster here to see who's presenting, how many women we actually have representing from junior to top level. Still room for improvement. It's good to see that they've increased it this year, but I think there's a possibility for more. Where do you think we are in terms of leveling the playing field for women in leadership, and what do you think are the biggest challenges we're facing? For you to start.
Yeah, I think, like if I speak personally, there's the imposter syndrome, there's the confidence issue. I feel like I'm very lucky in that we have an organization which really does think about women and how women are, present in the business. But I also think within this particular industry, within the tech world, it's just removing that word and removing the fear around that word. You can work in tech, but you don't have to be tech. Like, I'm not the most tech person, but I've worked in this industry for 10 years. There are so many different roles within tech, and it's figuring out what your skill set is and then where the gaps within those organizations are and then carving out your niche. And I think that that's a really actionable way that we can overcome the barriers and that we can have more women in this space, and then obviously progressing on to leadership.
Looking at what problems you can solve within the organization, I suppose, is key, isn't it? To say absolutely, whether you're at a junior level or working yourself up as to what's important. How can organizations support women? You're doing a lot already, Sarah.
Yeah, this isn't a snappy answer, and I think it's a real culture shift. And I think, if you look at the fact that there are less women in tech roles today than there were in the 1980s, now that tells me something. That tells me that loads of women were attracted to this. They were attracted to this industry and tech in general, and it was all power suits. My mum had one; it looked brilliant. And then for some reason you can't retain us. Is it burnout? Is it the fact that we're still predominantly carers for children, etc., and the onus is put on us, or whatever the reason is? It's because I think you can attract people into your business, be there people of color, women, neurodiverse people, all the diversity spectrum. But if you're not changing your culture from what is predominantly, I don't want to say the word, but patriarchal culture, right? The workplace was built by men for men that look a certain way. Then if we're not really having those difficult conversations and trying to change that, you're not going to retain this amazing talent within your business. So it's difficult. It's not a snappy answer. Yeah, there are things like, go out there and put yourself out there and talk about this. Sit on a panel and talk about it, so people can understand that you're an ally or whatever, and that's great. And it's great to see more women sat on panels and more diverse panels, but really it's what's happening on the outside isn't really reflecting what's happening on the inside in the workplace. So there is a lot of work to be done, and it's about having those really challenging and difficult conversations and self-reflection as well, because we all have our unconscious bias, and we need to do a bit of learning about that.
How important is mentorship, Carlotta, in leveling the playing field?
I think so. I'm a very big fan of mentorship. I have been mentored by countless amazing people, and for that reason, then I got involved with so many different networks to kind of give back. I think mentorship is a great tool to help more women progress within the organizations. But I would say whilst there's been like loads of programs being implemented, which is great, right? It's very much needed. I think there's still like some work to do when it comes to unconscious bias, right? Especially what I was saying earlier about like my initiative for Too Ambitious is rooted into the idea that very often if you see a woman who's ambitious, she's annoying, It's not really seen as well as it would be for a man, right? So there's still a bit of a unconscious bias in relation to these things. So how can we consciously make an effort to actually recognize this as a very positive trait that can be used for positive change, for the individual, for the people around them, and, for the organization, right? And then the other thing that I think still needs a bit of work is the sponsorship side of things. So mentorship is great for guidance, great for, to understand the next steps. However, when it comes to organizations, having a sponsor is very important. And that should not just be the responsibility of the person looking for a sponsor, but also for people who are higher up and have the opportunity to help, younger talent grow and develop. Yeah. So I think it's very important to really foster like a culture from within and not just, have it rooted into policy, let's say, like go beyond policies and really try and develop, an organizational culture that allows for this, culture shift that allows for this, not like approach in a more natural way, let's say.
Yeah.
Right, we've got 90 seconds. So even with my podcast, I always end with Trailblazer takeaway tips. What are the takeaway tips you want to leave with the audience today?
Oh, you always do this to me. Okay. So AI, I'm thinking like data. I think from an agency point of view, the biggest bugbears we have when we're integrating or implementing something is that if the data isn't right, that causes huge issues. So utilize AI to help you do that. Streamline, with regards to marketing, etc., tagging the relevant things so you can target the right people at the right time. AI is really useful for that. And when it comes to diversity, do it, just do it. Because ultimately your customers will win. And that's what we're here for. We're here to create that awesome customer experience, and you will not do that without diversity in your business.
Carlotta?
I would say like intentionally build diverse teams, not because of policy, but because it's actually going to help your organization and your organizational culture and your customers. And I would say from a AI perspective, try and find that balance between the data, this speediness of response and accuracy with the human touch that is still very much needed to connect in an authentic way with the customers.
I think for me it's fundamentals. I think with AI there's lots of exciting things that you can do, but have you got the fundamentals of it in place first? And it's similar for CX, it's thinking about who your customer is, and sometimes there's more than one. What are their problems? How can you solve them? Have you got that part right before you try and do anything crazy? And the same for women in the workplace, particularly in tech. It's thinking about, fundamentally, do we have diversity in our team? Have we got that messaging right? Have we got that involvement right? Are there, substantial allies within the room who can support women to do their best and to feel empowered in the workplace?
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. For anyone who wants to catch up with any one of them, they're on LinkedIn or the platforms. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.